Arguably, animation may be viewed as the most auteurist of film practices in this respect, and its very process, even when at its most collaborative, insists upon the cohesive intervention of an authorial presence. This is rarely the truth now. Since animation is very controllable, a lot of material is written by committee, leading to directionless films. Lots of animated films now are sequels and remakes of previous IP successes due to the decline of success in original material. So now we are left with the unoriginal continuations and remakes of content that was successful due to their stories and ideas. We can see this attitude mimicked by the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, saying,
"We're going to balance sequels with originals, particularly in animation. We'd gone through a period where our original films in animation, both Disney and Pixar, were dominating. Now we're swinging back a bit to lean on sequels."
This makes sense, sadly. Disney and Pixar have had a really bad few years of animated flops in original content. This isn't due to the scale or look of the animation, which has stayed excellent, but instead the external pressures of producers. Wish is a great example of this, as even though it was painted as the film that reflects on all their past movies, it is in reality a bunch of Disney execs checkmarking a list of things that make a Disney movie good, instead of asking, how do we make a good story? This is why auteurist animation usually meets success when left untouched by execs, because the project is left to someone who isn't interested in money but instead a good story. While it is important to be realistic about a film's timeline and budget, it's also important to trust the reins of a story with its director. This is why auteurist films are not seen much in the mainstream, and when they are, they're usually big hits created by writers and directors who have mainstream credibility, like Wes Anderson, Lord and Miller, and Tim Burton. However, I want to talk about an animated auteur who has one of the best, yet cut short filmographies, Henry Selick. Henry Selick is an American filmmaker known for producing some of the best gothic horror stop-motion films. His most notable works are The Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline. He is arguably the best track record of animated adaptations, more than any other director, and yet he's not nearly as widely acclaimed as his peers. This could be in due part to his preferences of adapting work and not writing material, or maybe being the king of making terrifying and creepy kids films, but a definite reason is due to the interference of studio execs, but more on that later. When looking for an example of an auteur in animation, there is no better case study than Henry Selick. First and foremost, Henry Selick is an animator. He knows what works and can create a lot of great looking animation in different styles depending on the project. Something lots of animation directors don't do, opting to stick to the style that works well for them. The reason this makes him a great auteur though is because he has spent time out of leadership and been other crucial parts of projects. He's worked as an art director for Wes Anderson on The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou and Fantastic Mr. Fox. As well as an animator at Disney where he worked on Who Framed Roger Rabbit and The Great Mouse Detective. The reason I bring this up is the concept of an auteur can be quite unforgiving. It paints a director or writer as the only essential part of a production and reduces other crucial roles to thoughtless tools that only produce art because of the auteur's bidding. However, in this harsh example, Selick has experience in both roles, and unlike other people who work their way up to leadership when it doesn't suit their work ethic, he's brilliant at it. However, the main reason he's a great example of an auteur is how he's been reacted to by production houses and producers. When given the reins to his own projects, he's made some truly awesome work full of passion, horror and heart. However, too many times in his career, his projects have been manhandled and overhauled into bastardizations that have flopped or been cancelled altogether because of mistrusting studios and execs. Before we get into that, however, we're going to first look at the start of Henry Selick's directorial career, which began with Henry Selick's big first break that defined his career was Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, from the title you'd assume Burton was the director, but it's a common misconception. During the time of production, Burton was off directing Batman Returns and left the director's chair to Selick. Burton wrote the screenplay and sketched the designs for the characters and world, but then left the film to Selick to create. It's a visually beautiful film, and Selick's direction shines through. The use of pan shots looks effortlessly integrated with the stop motion at work, and the use of lighting makes the film look incredibly gothic and immersive. This film garnered huge success and led Selick on to produce films more in his style than Burton's. As 3 years after, Selick came out with James and the Giant Peach is an underrated gem and already more of a personally altered work to Selick. While the story is a bit pitted, pun intended, the design of the stop motion animated segments are excellent. You can already start to see the style of Selick's designs, his use of sharp lines with little curvature, the beady eyes, and his unique insectoid designs that we would see return in his later work on Coraline. You can also see the passion within the performances of the live action segments, with every actor giving it their all. This film didn't reach nearly the same level of success as Selick's previous work with Burton, but it did cement his style of directing. As I mentioned before, Henry Selick is a good example of an animation auteur due to the impact he has had in the modern world of animation business. I'm now going to go over some examples of when Henry Selick has created masterpieces that have stood the test of time thanks to trusting studios, and failures that have never met their potential due to poor leadership choices. We're going to start off with the latter of the two, and no better film describes failure of potential better than Henry Selick's next film. Monkeybone was the next release of Selick, and unlike the last 2 films, this was not good. However, it wasn't devoid of great elements. The parts where the protagonist goes into the stop motion world downtown are animated great, and the animation that melded Monkeybone and Brendan Fraser was flawless. However, 3/4 of the film is in live action, and that part is the weakest. The style of the piece is gone and the direction feels sloppy. This makes sense as during production there were conversations of firing Selick halfway through, which then led to 20th Century Fox execs holding the wheel without Selick until the project met a messy end.
The movie would have been incredible, at least the underworld part, if men of 20th Century Fox, the Suits, hadn't fired the director, a true artist, Henry Selick, halfway through the filming.
This is profoundly sad, as Monkeybone would have been Henry Selick's magnum opus, I think. Monkeybone was adapted from a comic called Darktown, which was the original name for the film. Selick said the comic held a lot of significance, as it was the closest piece of work that matched his gothic style. However, because of meddling execs, the film had no chance of fulfilling its potential, as Selick has said.
I have a few feelings. I don't feel Monkeybone would ever have been a big hit as it was. They dumped the film with no publicity, not a single ad, because they just figured, well, it's a failure. We don't want to help it any which way. I went down a slippery slope to make Monkeybone, but the film that came out was not my vision of what the film could have been, and I just don't thrive in that.
You can truly feel the loss of an auteur through Monkeybone, and it did affect Selick as he swore off live-action directing after it, though he has wanted to release a director's cut with more of the segments in the downtown world he created, showing he had much more investment in this better segment of the film. Another example of Selick's work never meeting its full potential is the incredibly sad Shadow King. It was produced with Disney and was 3/4 through production before getting cancelled. A really rare occurrence in the world of animation, the reason being John Lasseter taking control over certain segments and ballooning the budget to the point where Disney stopped the project. Another case of studio interference over an auteur leading to a piece of work never meeting its full potential. Selick even reflects upon the loss of the Shadow King by saying this about his auteurist point of view.
When there's an executive more powerful than me, forcing me to do something in every case, it breaks the movie and can ultimately destroy it. My feeling is like, give me this much money, we agree on what the film is going to be, and you're welcome to give me notes and have input, but let me decide and you'll have a better film. It will be more successful. And when it goes the other way, it doesn't work.
This is a really astute observation, as in every case where it does go the other way, you get Monkeybone and the Shadow King. However, when it does go right, you're left with a piece of work made by a committed artist who is passionate about the story they're telling, which will then connect with an audience who will feel the passion and remember the movie. This then leads to the story being heralded and remembered. Luckily, Henry Selick has been trusted by production companies and execs, and we're going to look at the time where all the factors worked out for him, leading him to create, in my opinion, the best movie in his filmography, which is obviously... it couldn't be anything else. Coraline is a visual masterpiece with every frame and design tailored to fit the correct time in the story. This is proven as visual details of Coraline are still being dissected to this day, 15 years later. However, it perfectly proves the theory of the question we are answering. Somebody had to create all these different forms of Coraline's mum. Somebody popped the popcorn and painted it. They did an entire stop-motion animated mouse circus. This film went above and beyond any other children's film, and I think the big reason behind this is LAIKA. LAIKA Studios is an interesting production company to say the least, since their two key features that shine through their films is stop motion and detail. The details within their catalogue are fabulous, really some of the best modern stop motion animations in terms of style. However, what sets LAIKA apart is their slow approach to movies. Each film they produce takes around 2 years to create, so we have a filmography more stretched apart. However, this studio fits Selick perfectly, and he was able to fully flesh out his project. Like his other films, he was adapting from a previous work, Coraline by Neil Gaiman, even using the same name for the film. However, he was able to work with Gaiman like he did with Burton to produce a story more fit for the silver screen, something he couldn't do that affected James and the Giant Peach. The reason I'm mentioning all these external factors is that it shows how even an auteur is only as good as his funder, and in Selick's case, writer. However, when all these factors come together under the eye of an auteur as selective and precise as Selick, you get beautiful art. There isn't much to say about Coraline that hasn't been said before, but I'll give it a go to show off Selick's meticulous work. The furniture becoming insects in the other world, the back of the other mother's dress resembling an insect. Something Selick as an auteur seems to do is draw back to his previous work, namely Coraline referencing James and the Giant Peach and James and the Giant Peach referencing The Nightmare Before Christmas. The use of perspective in scenes makes each frame feel scaled correctly and yet feel off. The father's office being scaled with paintings and boxes to match the father's height. The usage of slanting the dining table to get the best possible shot. The mise-en-scène in all the movie's frames is spectacular, really. Having to create two drastically different worlds in style with only subtle levels of face value detail changes. Only then to make the nicer world more horrific than anything. The harsh white lighting and smooth camera shots. The mouse circus! Seriously, they did not need to go this hard, but I'm so glad they did. Coraline is a masterpiece and a film I'm sad I avoided for so long after seeing it in 2010 as a child and having nightmares. That aside, a studio giving time and resources for an auteur to fully flesh out a visually unique gothic story about appreciating family, you're left with a masterpiece. In response to the quote at the beginning of the video, I have to say, it's kinda right. As a concept, animation is very auteurist, as it's an art form where you design every frame from scratch in your vision, usually with the help of a team. Together you create a piece of moving art that is all your own. However, in practice, this is becoming less the case, as I mentioned with the ever popular move to creating sequels and remakes of original stories via committee by bigger production houses. However, this is not entirely a bad thing. This bad choice has led to a surge of popularity for independent creators and auteurs, not bound by the bureaucratic hands of producers and free to create whatever their vision is. Megacorporations like Disney will continue to create whatever works and appeals, but animator auteurs will continue to tell stories.